Hello lovelies, you're welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is DK Oni. In this video, I want to show you how to make a pencil skirt with a butt effect using the hips allocation method. Hips allocation has to do with measuring your client's front hips separately and your client's back hips separately. Um, One thing with hips allocation is just this is the hip circumference of your client. So one thing with this allocation is you just have to measure your client's front hips and your client's back hips. Is when you measure the hips from one side to the other side. For the front, you measure from one side to the side. You place your tape measurement round just in front of the place like this to measure the front hips, and the back hips is to measure the back from one side to the other to take into consideration the size of the butt. That is the essence of the hip allocation. In this tutorial, what I lay emphasis on is if you're unable to measure your client physically. So that is the method I want to teach in this tutorial, because basically hips allocation has to do with you measuring the front hips of your client and the back hips of your client. So we're going to make use of the general size chart that we have, which is the small size, the medium size, and the large size. So don't pardon my diagram, I just had to just sketch out something to guide us on what I am trying to explain. So we have clients that have small butts, and we have clients that don't even have any butts at all. But they still have bum bum sha. Then the medium, we have the ones that have a butt, let's say a moderate butt, and we have the large one that the butt is just so like they have bum bum. Like, the main reason for hips allocation, it all depends on the size of your client's butt. So we're going to just use the general size chart that we have: the small size, medium size, and the large size. So we're just going to call this the small butt, call this the medium butt, and call this the large butt. So this, let me just leave it as 1, 2, and 3, so you understand what I am trying to explain. So like for instance, for me, I fall under the small butt. I have bum bum more, but I am a slim size, like I'm on the slim side. So I fall under this small but size variation. So as I said earlier, hips allocation just has to do with you measuring your client's front hips and your back hips, because the front hips and the back hips are not of the same sizes. The back hips is way bigger than the front hips because of the shape of the bum bum and the size of the bum bum. So generally, if you're unable to measure your client's front hips and the back hips physically, if you're unable to measure, or if you're unable to see your client to measure the front and back hips, so there's a way and there's a method you can go about it. That is the essence for this video. It's just something like this. Let's say something like this. I think so. So you measure from here, from this side to this side. Mind my illustration, I'm just trying to explain the front hips and the back hips, how you get it. So for this method, what you're going to do is we're going to look at these 3 different sizes of butts and how we're going to allocate the hips depending on how the size of the butt is. So for this first size of butt, which is the small butt, so we're just going to look at it. This one is 1, so it's for the small butt. So basically what we're going to do first is to divide these hips into 2 equally to get the hip allocation for the front and for the back first, before we can use the method to allocate the hips depending on the butt size. So when you divide 38 divided by 2, that means I have 19 inches. That means I have 19 inches for the front and 19 inches for the back. For the front and 19 inches for the back. So for this small size but the hip allocation, how we're going to go about this is what I'm going to do. So what we're going to do is for the front hips, equals to 19 inches minus 0.5 over an inch equals to 18 and a half. So 0.5 is for the front hips, and for the back hips, what you do is, which is 19, you add what you subtracted from the front to the back plus 0.5 equals to 19.5. That's for this both sides. You're going to use 18.5 for the front hips and you're going to use 19.5 for the back hips. Then for this second type of both sides, which is the medium butt, the size, you just what you just have to do is just to take note of the size of your client's butt, so you know how to allocate the hips between the front and the back, since you're unable to measure your client physically. So for this medium butt, so what you do, the front hips, which is 19, if you can remember, minus 1 inch, that is 18 inches for the front. And for the back hips, you add up what you subtracted from the front hips, you add it to the back hips. That is 19 plus 1. That makes it 20 inches for the back hips. Whatever you subtract from the front hips, you add it back to the back hips. Then for this third size of butt, for the third one, 3, that is the large butt. So what you do for the front hips, our front hips is 19. What you do is you subtract either 1.5 inch or 2 inches. It depends on the size of the butt. You know, we have plus sizes that have butts and we have plus sizes that don't really have that big butt like that. So you just have to just look at the size of your client's butt to know the size of the butt and know how you're going to allocate the hips. So it's either you subtract 1.5 inches for this large bust, between 1.5 inches or 2 inches. So either 1.5 or 2 inches. So you're the only one that is seeing your client, so you know how big and how you're going to allocate the hips for this large butt size. So it's either you do 1.5 or 2 inches. So 19 minus 1.5 is either 17.5 or 17 inches. That's if you subtract 1.5 from 19, you have 17.5. If you subtract 2 inches from 19, you have 17 inches. Then for the back hips, 19, whatever you subtract from the front, you add it back to the back, plus 1.5 or 2 inches. So 19 plus 1.5 is 20.5, or 19 plus 2 is 21 inches. Very simple. So that's just all about the hips allocation technique.
As you can see, I've created my top line, so I'm just going to go ahead and create a box using my hips. My hips is 37 divided by 2, then add 2 inches to it, so I have 20 and a half. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark 20 and a half to guide me to create my box. After that, I'm going to impute my skirt length. My skirt length is 25 inches. Just imputing it, as you can see, all across to create my box. So just use my ruler and make the markings visible, as you can see. Then I'm going to go ahead and divide the box into 2. You're going to divide into 2. That is 20.5 divided by 2 is 10.25. So I'm going to impute 10.25 all across from the top to my skirt length line, as you can see. So I'm going to use my ruler to make the markings visible, as you can see. So I'm going to go ahead and label my skirt. That's going to be the front skirt. Don't mind what I wrote as center front. And that's going to be the back skirt. So I use that area so that I'll be able to impute my zip allowance. That's why I use that side as for the back skirt. So I'm going to go ahead and impute my waist to hips line. My waist to hips line is 10 inches. So I'm just going to go ahead and impute it all across the box, as you can see, both on the front skirt and on the back skirt. Then use my ruler to make the markings visible, as you can see. So that's our waistline. That is waist to the hips line and waist to the skirt length line, as you can see. So I'm just going to go ahead and impute my waist measurement for the front. My waist is 28 divided by 4 is 7 inches. 28 divided by 4 is 7 inches. So I'm going to impute it. Just watch where I place my tape. 7 inches, and I'm going to add 1 inch for my dart intake, which is a total of 8 inches. Then on the hips line, my hips is 37 inches, and here we're going to make use of the hips allocation method. Since I fall under the small butt size, I'm just going to subtract 0.5 from my hips measurement. So my hips is 37 inches divided by 2 is 18.5. If you remember the method, so 18.5 minus 0.5 for my front hips would be 18 inches for the front hips. Then I'm going to go ahead and divide 18 by 2 because my pattern is on fold. The pattern is on fold. 18 divided by 2 is 9 inches. That means my front hips line, I'm going to impute 9 inches. Watch how I place my tape and mark my 9 inches, as you can see. Then on the skirt length line, I'm going to subtract 1.5 from 9 inches. That is for the skirt length line for the front skirt block. 9 inches minus 1.5 inches because I want it fitted as in like a pencil skirt. So I have 7.5 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and impute 7.5 inches on the skirt length line. As you can see, watch how I place my tape and impute 7.5. So I am going to come down from my hips line by 1.5 inches because I don't want a situation whereby after imputing my measurement and I want to connect the lines and the hips line is now looking too curvy. I don't want that, so I'm just going to come down by 1.5 inches to make the shape moderate. So just use my ruler and make the markings clear, as you can see. So I'm just going to go ahead and impute my hips measurement on the front and impute it back on that 1.5 inches line. Measure what is there, then impute it on the 1.5 inches line like so. Then I'm just going to go ahead and connect the points I made using my ruler, as you can see, straight up. then from there straight to the waistline. You can now see why I came down by 1.5 inches. You can see that hips line is not looking too curvy. As you can see how it's looking, it's now looking moderate, very moderate. So I'm just going to face the back skirt. So on the back skirt, I am going to impute my waist measurement on the waistline. So my waist is 28 divided by 4, that is 7 inches. As you can see, impute 7 inches with 1 inch for my dart intake. That's a total of 8 inches. Impute your 7 inches first and add your 1 inch for the dart intake. Then after that, on the hips line, we're going to impute our hips. So we're going to use our hips allocation method for the back. Remember, I fall under the small butt size. So for my back hips, as you all know, we divided the hips 37 divided by 2. That is 18.5 for both the front and the back. That's equaling. So remember, I subtracted 0.5 from the front hips. So I'm just going to add that 0.5 back to the back hips. That is 18.5 plus 0.5. I have a total of 19 inches for the back hips. So I'm just going to go ahead and divide 19 inches by 2 because my pattern is on fold and I have 9.5 inches. So I'm just going to go ahead and impute 9.5 inches on the hips line. Just watch the way I place my tape and do the same thing on that 1.5 each I came down by. So on the skirt length line, I'm going to subtract 1.5 inches from the hips, which is 9.5 minus 1.5. That is a total of 8 inches. Just watch the way I place my tape. I want my skirt fitted like a pencil skirt. So I'm just going to go ahead and connect the dots, as you can see, using my ruler. As you can see, you can see that it's not looking too curvy. Then for the dart intake, my nipple to nipple is 6 divided by 2, that is 3 inches. So for the front, I'm just going to use the dart length of 5 inches. 5 inches. Then mark my nipple to nipple point, which is 3 inches, and use my ruler to connect it, as you can see. And remember, we did 1 inch for the dart intake. So 1 inch, you divide it by 2, we have half of an inch. So you place half of an inch on the 2 sides of the nipple to nipple line, as you can see. Then connect it to the dart length, as you can see. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for the back. My nipple to nipple is 3 inches. So I'm just going to place 3 inches, as you can see. So for the back dart length, I want to use 4 inches. So I'm just going to place 4 inches. Just watch the way I place my tape, as you can see. Then cross check with my nipple to nipple. That is the 3 inches, and use my ruler to make the markings visible, as you can see. So remember, the 1 inch dart intake we use, you're going to divide by 2, that is half of an inch, and impute it on the 2 sides of the nipple to nipple line. My ruler to connect it, as you can see. So that's it for the back dart. So on the front block, on the center front, I'm going to come down by half of an inch to avoid too much bulge at that stomach area. So I'm going to connect it to the first dart leg, as you can see. So I used my French curve because I don't want it to be too sharp. I want it a bit curvy. So on the center back, I want to contour that zip area. So I'm just going to go in by half of an inch because I'm on the slim side. But if you're on the big size, you can use 1 inch to contour it. So I'm just going to connect it back to the hips line, as you can see. So this half of an inch I went in by, I'm going to return it to the side back, as you can see. Then connect it to the hips line. whatever you use to contour the center back is you're going to return it to the side back also. So we have no need for that because it has already been contoured to give that butt effect. So on the skirt length, I am going to go in by half of an inch also, because that was what I used at the waistline. So you go in by half of an inch to contour the skirt length line, as you can see. So connect it back to the 1.5 inch I came down by from the hips line, as you can see. So I'm going to go ahead and return what I used to contour the center back to the side back, as you can see. So just connect the dots to the 1.5 inches I came down by from the hips line, as you can see. So we have no need for that because we've already contoured the skirt length line to give that butt effect, as you can see. So here's how the back is looking like, as you can see, to give that butt effect. I'm on a slim size, so it's not that curvy. So here's how our basic pencil skirts looks like with the butt effect using the hips allocation method. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut out my pattern and cut through that midpoint line, as you can see. So I'll be able to separate the front skirt block and the back skirt block, as you can see. So I'm just going to go ahead and label it. That's my front skirt block and that is my back skirt block, as you can see. So I am going to close these two dart legs to check if there's going to be shortage, and I noticed there's just a little shortage, so I'm just going to use my ruler and my marker to blend it so that when I cut through I won't have any shortage. And this pattern that I'm making is a bandless skirt. I don't want to use a band, so I'm trying to make everything to fit and blend in very well, as you can see. So I continue cutting through, cut the side skirts. Remember, this is a bandless skirt. I don't want to make use of any band. So for the back also, just watch the way I am going to cut through that contoured area. That is our new center back, straight up to the top. That is the waistline, the contoured area also. So I'm just going to go ahead and close that legs and place it onto each other to check if there's a shortage, and I notice we have none. So after closing it, I'm just going to cut through, as you can see, so that after sewing my darts I won't have any shortage. As you can see, just watch where I am cutting through. So that's our new side skirt, as you can see, side back skirt actually. Just cut through, that's all. So I've gone ahead to place my front pattern onto my fabric, and my fabric is on fold, as you can see. That's my center front and that's my side front. So I marked 0.5 inches I'm going to use to fold it in. Then on the dash leg I came up by 0.75 of an inch to avoid any form of shortage. So on the side I made use of 1 inch for the seam allowance, and on the skirt length line I used 1 inch also, as you can see. So I want to show you how you're going to cut that skirt length line, that is the hem line. So you just go ahead and fold in where your skirt length pattern is. Just watch what I'm doing. Just fold it in like so, like that. Just fold it in like that, as you can see. Fold it very neatly where your pattern skirt length is where you fold it in. Then cut through your 1 inch seam allowance that you added. as you can see. Then open it up. You can notice that that skirt length area is not straight, so that by the time you fold in the hem there won't be any shortage. That's why I said you should fold it in. As you can see, yeah, just showing you. So for the back also, I placed, that is my side back and my center back, I used 1 inch, and I used 1 inch also for both the center back and the side back. Then for the skirt length line, I used 1 inch. At the waistline, I used half inch. On the dart line, I used 0.75. That's my zipper allowance of 1 inch. That is the center back. That is my side back, and that's my hem allowance, which is 1 inch. So I'm just going to repeat what I did to the front, to the back also, and cut through, as you can see. Open it up, as you can see. Then you cut off the excess at the skirt length line, then cut through my center back line, which I used 1 inches, which also serve as my zipper allowance. So cut through the waistline, as you can see. Then I'm going to go ahead and notch that 1 inch I used, because that is going to be my zipper allowance, and to be easier for me to differentiate the center back and the side back, so that I will know where I'm going to place my zip. So I use half of an inch at the waistline because it's a bandless skirt, so I can be able to fold it in, as you can see. If you want to add band to yours, you just measure your band height, if it's 2 or 3 inches, and cut it out. But for this tutorial, I want a bandless skirt, pencil skirt. So I went ahead to transfer my dart. You can watch my video where I explain how to easily transfer your darts from your pattern to your fabric. Is very easy. So I use that same method to transfer my darts from my pattern onto my fabric. So I'm just trying to make it visible to enable me to sew it easily. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.